The mining station hung silent in the black sea of space, its metal hull groaning softly under the pull of a nearby gas giant. Inside, the captain sat in his quarters, eyes fixed on an old photo resting on the desk. It showed a younger him in combat armor, arms slung around a tall, silver-skinned alien woman with bright amber eyes. That picture was 15 years old, taken days before the battle that ended the war, and took her from him. At least, that's what he had believed. The silence broke with a sharp beep from the wall console. The voice of his comms officer crackled through the intercom, strained and uncertain. "Captain, you might want to hear this." He rose, the heaviness in his bones replaced by a flicker of curiosity. In the comms room, the crew sat frozen around the main display. The signal was faint, layered with static, but it was unmistakably a voice. Female, trembling, and speaking his name in their old code frequency. "Captain, after 15 years, I'm ready to serve you again." His blood went cold. The voice cut straight through him like a blade. He knew that voice, knew it down to the smallest inflection. Sari. Lieutenant Sari, his second in command, his most trusted officer, the one who had vanished in the smoke and chaos of the last battle. For years, he had carried her name on the list of the dead. Yet here she was, speaking like no time had passed, her tone thick with something between relief and fear. The message ended abruptly, replaced by a hollow hiss of static. The comms officer turned to him. "Sir, the signal originated from deep within the Zoran dead zone." The words settled over the room like dust. The Zoran dead zone was a graveyard of ships and cities, a battlefield so poisoned and unstable that even pirates avoided it. No one had lived there for over a decade. The captain's thoughts churned. The dead zone was where Sari had last been seen, fighting off enemy soldiers so he could escape. She had been surrounded, her comms cut. If she had survived there for 15 years, how? And why call him now? His crew shifted uneasily, glancing between him and the blinking coordinates on the display. They knew the risks. Going into the dead zone was a death sentence. He asked for the signal to be played again. The voice came through, fragile yet steady. "Captain, after 15 years, I'm ready to serve you again." The way she said ready felt like more than loyalty. It felt like a plea. His jaw tightened. "Prepare a course," he ordered. The first officer stepped forward. "Sir, with respect, this could be a trap. That area's full of old war tech. You know how many ships never come back from there?" "I know," the captain said, eyes fixed on the flickering star map. "But if there's even a chance it's her, I'm not leaving her behind again." The ship, a sleek but worn corvette, detached from the mining station's docking ring with a gentle thrum. As the stars stretched into the blur of faster-than-light travel, the crew remained tense. The captain stood alone at the viewport, hands clasped behind his back, replaying Sari's voice in his mind. Every word was a reminder of unfinished promises and unspoken truths. Hours later, they dropped out of hyperspace at the dead zone's edge. Before them lay a vast field of shattered metal and drifting debris, illuminated by the dim light of a dying sun. Hulks of warships floated in silence, their hulls pitted and scarred. Broken cities clung to the fractured crust of planets below. The entire region radiated a stillness that felt wrong, like the battlefield was holding its breath. The ship's scanners swept the area, locking onto the coordinates from the transmission. The source was buried deep within the ruins of a collapsed alien fortress. As they approached, the captain noticed faint energy readings, too faint for a city, but enough for a single life support system. They descended through a graveyard of skeletal towers, their shadows long and jagged in the weak light. Pieces of old banners fluttered in the thin air, their symbols barely visible through years of grime. The fortress's main gate was crushed inward, as if something massive had forced its way inside long ago. The captain's pulse quickened. Suddenly, the proximity alarm blared. A cluster of old defense drones stirred from the ruins, their eyes glowing red as they detected the ship's presence. Their movements were erratic, like ghosts that had forgotten their purpose. The pilots swerved between collapsing spires, using the ruins for cover, while the drones fired bursts of ancient plasma that lit the air with green fire. "Hold her steady," the captain barked, strapping himself into the gunner's seat. He returned fire, striking one drone and sending it spiraling into a tower in a burst of smoke. The others retreated into the shadows, their faint signals vanishing as quickly as they had appeared. They landed in the fortress's outer courtyard, the ground cracked and overgrown with strange crystal formations. The air was thin and bitter, every breath tasting of dust and metal. The captain stepped out, scanning the empty windows and darkened archways. A faint sound echoed through the courtyard. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. He turned toward the source. From the shadow of a broken arch emerged a figure draped in a tattered cloak, hood pulled low. The figure paused, then reached up and pushed the hood back. Her face was thinner, her skin marked with faint scars, but the amber eyes were the same. Sorry. She looked at him for a long moment before speaking, her voice still carrying that familiar tremor. We don't have time, Captain. They know you're here. Before he could ask who they were, a metallic screech rose from the ruins. Shapes moved in the darkness. More drones, dozens of them. Sari stepped closer, urgency burning in her eyes. We have to go. Now. The captain hesitated for only a second, then grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the ship. The ruins behind them lit up with flashes of green as the drones gave chase, their movements faster, more coordinated than before. The air filled with the crack of energy like fire as they sprinted up the ramp, the ship's engines roaring to life. As they lifted off, the captain glanced at her. 15 years, Sari? You owe me an explanation. She didn't look at him. Instead, she stared out at the crumbling city shrinking beneath them. You'll get it, Captain, but first, we survive. The ship's hull still shook from the near miss with the drones as it cut through the poisoned clouds of the dead zone. Sari sat silently in the seat beside the captain, her eyes scanning the dark horizon beyond the viewport. The captain studied her from the corner of his vision, older now, sharper around the edges, yet there was something in her posture that felt the same as 15 years ago. They descended toward the source of the signal. The scanners painted a grim picture. A moon with fractured crust, jagged mountain ridges, and a city in ruins. The surface shimmered faintly in the pale light, as if coated in a thin layer of glass from some ancient heat wave. The remains of once great spires jutted upward, black against the dead sky. The captain guided the ship lower, weaving through towers split in half, their interiors exposed like broken bones. This place is dead, the first officer muttered from the back. Why would you stay here for so long? Sari didn't answer. Her gaze remained locked on the ground as if searching for something or someone. Then, without warning, she pointed. There, she said. Her voice was low but urgent. That's where we land. The coordinates led them to a hidden platform on the edge of the ruins, half covered by collapsed stone. The landing was rough. Dust swirled up in a choking cloud as the ship's ramp lowered. The air was dry and thin, each breath tasting of ash. The captain stepped out first, scanning the area. The ruins around them were silent except for the faint hum of the ship's idle engines. They moved through the broken streets, their boots crunching over shattered glass and twisted metal. Sari walked ahead, her steps sure as if she knew every turn and shadow. Her cloak fluttered in the stale wind, the tattered edges brushing over cracked stone. The captain noticed fresh marks on the ground, tracks too clean to be years old. You weren't alone here, he said. Her eyes flicked toward him, but she didn't slow down. No, she admitted. Not always, but they're gone now. They entered a wide square once meant for public gatherings. Statues lay toppled, faces erased by time. At the center stood a large fountain, its basin dry, its edges scorched. Sari knelt beside it and brushed away dust from a hidden hatch. With a grunt, she pulled it open, revealing a narrow stairwell leading underground. The stale air inside was warmer, tinged with the faint scent of smoke and something metallic. They descended into the darkness, their footsteps echoing off stone walls. Dim lights flickered to life as they reached the bottom, a small chamber lined with crude supplies, water tanks, makeshift bedding, and shelves stocked with preserved food. A fire pit sat in the middle, cold but recently used. This was your home? The captain asked. It was my shelter, she said softly. Home is something else. She reached into a corner and pulled out a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside was a weathered communicator, its casing scratched and dented. This is what I used to reach you. It's old, but it works. Barely. Before the captain could respond, a faint metallic clatter echoed through the tunnels. Sari froze, her eyes snapping toward the sound. They're here, she whispered. The captain's hand went to his sidearm. Who? She moved to the far wall and pressed her palm against a panel. revealing another exit, narrow, sloping upward. "We can't fight them here. Move." They slipped into the passage, the light behind them dimming. The sound of movement grew louder, metal scraping stone, a mechanical hiss. The captain risked a glance back and caught sight of something in the shadows. Tall, insect-like machines with glowing red eyes, their legs clicking against the floor as they advanced. "They've been hunting me for years," Sari said between breaths as they climbed. "Old war machines, abandoned after the battle, but someone reactivated them." "Who?" the captain asked, forcing himself to keep pace. "I don't know," she replied, her tone clipped. "But they don't stop. Ever." The tunnel ended in a jagged opening that spilled them into the skeleton of a massive building above. Sunlight filtered weakly through holes in the ceiling, casting sharp beams across the dust-filled air. The machine's metallic screeches were closer now, echoing off the stone. The captain spotted the ship through a collapsed archway, its ramp still down. "Go," he ordered. They sprinted across the rubble-strewn ground, the sound of pounding metal legs closing in behind them. A plasma bolt sizzled past the captain's shoulder, burning a hole in the wall beside him. He turned and fired back, his shot sparking harmlessly off the machine's armored shells. Sari grabbed a loose piece of metal and hurled it, knocking one off balance just long enough for them to reach the ramp. As the engines roared to life, the machines burst into the open, their glowing eyes locking onto the ship. The captain hit the thrusters, the force nearly throwing them off their feet as the ship shot upward. Below, the machines grew smaller, their legs thrashing in frustration until they were nothing more than specks against the ruins. Sari stood at the viewport, staring down at the fortress as it shrank away. Her hands trembled slightly, though her voice was steady when she spoke. "You shouldn't have come here, Captain." He looked at her, still catching his breath. "And yet here I am. Now tell me why." Her gaze shifted from the window to him, her expression unreadable. "Because what I know could destroy everything. And the people who sent those machines, they'll never let me leave alive." The ship's engines hummed low as it glided through the empty dark between systems. The captain kept his eyes on the navigation display, but his mind was on the woman sitting silently beside him. Sari had not spoken since they escaped the ruins, her amber eyes fixed on the starfield outside, as if measuring the distance between them and danger. The quiet was broken by a sharp beeping from the sensor panel. The first officer leaned over, frowning. Multiple signatures closing fast, small, unmanned. The captain's hands tightened on the controls. Drones. A moment later, faint glimmers appeared on the edge of the viewport, dark shapes moving with frightening speed, their hulls jagged like shards of metal given life. Sari's head turned sharply. "They've found us." "How?" the captain demanded. "They always do," she said, voice low. "I've been running for years. They track my signal no matter how I hide. Someone or something is controlling them." The drones closed in, forming a wide circle around the ship. The captain punched the thrusters, but the machines matched his every move, herding them toward a cluster of shattered asteroids. Plasma bolts lit the void, streaks of green slicing past the hull. "Hold on," he said, diving toward a narrow gap between two tumbling rocks. The ship scraped close enough for sparks to flare along the shields. One drone wasn't so lucky. It slammed into a spinning boulder, breaking apart in a burst of metal fragments. "They'll send more," Sari warned. "We need to lose them completely." The captain's jaw clenched. "Then show me a way." She moved quickly to the console, her long fingers tapping a sequence into the navigation system. "There's an old tunnel network beneath the crust of Raskin 4, 3 hours from here. I lived there once. The drone scanners can't penetrate it." "That close to a dead mining colony?" the first officer said. "Now, that's suicide." Sari met the captain's gaze. "It's survival." He didn't hesitate. "Set the course." The ship veered off, pushing the engines to their limit. The drones gave chase, weaving between debris, firing relentlessly. One shot grazed the port side, rocking the vessel and triggering warning lights across the control panel. "Shields at 40%, the first officer shouted. The captain's fingers flew over the controls, pushing the ship into sharp rolls and sudden dives to shake the attackers. Two drones collided in the chaos, their bodies twisting into fiery wreckage. But the rest stayed close, their glowing red eyes locked onto the ship like predators refusing to give up the hunt. After what felt like hours, the dusty brown curve of Raskin 4 filled the viewport. The surface was scarred with old mining pits, some large enough to swallow cities. Sari pointed to a cluster of jagged ridges. There, beneath the third ridge, there's an entrance. The captain angled the ship toward the location, the trembling as they cut through the thin atmosphere. Dust storms raged across the surface, whipping around the ship in violent swirls. The drones followed without slowing, their shapes barely visible in the swirling haze. Too hot to land clean, the first officer warned. Then we don't land clean, the captain said. He dropped the ship hard, skimming the ground until the entrance appeared, a black maw at the base of the ridge. Without slowing, he plunged inside. The tunnel swallowed them whole, the storm's light fading into pitch darkness. The ship's floodlights clicked on, revealing walls of raw stone and old support beams coated in rust. The passage was just wide enough for their vessel, and the captain's hands moved with precision to keep them from scraping the sides. Behind them, the first drone tried to follow. It clipped a beam, spun sideways, and exploded in a burst of fire that shook the tunnel. The rest hesitated at the entrance, their programming calculating the risk. They won't come in here, Sari said, breathing hard. They'll wait for us to come out. The captain slowed the ship and guided it deeper until the walls opened into a vast underground chamber. Broken mining equipment lay scattered across the floor, their metal frames covered in decades of dust. Above, the ceiling vanished into shadow. They landed on a flat stretch of rock. The engines powered down, and for the first time since the chase began, silence filled the air. The captain turned to Sari. Now you tell me why they're after you. Her eyes met his, and for a long moment she said nothing. Then, she reached into her cloak and pulled out a small metal cylinder, its surface engraved with alien symbols. This, she said quietly, this is why. He took it from her, feeling the unexpected weight. What is it? Proof, she replied. Proof that the war was never what we were told. Proof that both our leaders planned it together and that millions died for nothing. I stole it before they could destroy it, and I've been running ever since. The captain stared at the cylinder, the truth pressing heavy in his hand. If what she said was real, it could tear the fragile piece apart. It could also get them both killed before they even left this moon. You could have destroyed it, he said. She shook her head. Then their lies would live forever. He glanced toward the dark tunnel behind them, where the faint glow of red eyes still flickered in the distance. We can't stay here long. Sari's voice was steady now. I know, but if you help me, Captain, we can end this, for good. The underground chamber felt colder after Sari's words. The captain held the small metal cylinder in his hands, turning it slowly, the engraved alien symbols catching the dim light. His mind raced with questions, but the weight of what she had said pressed heavier than the object itself. Proof of a conspiracy that had started a war. If it was real, it would not only destroy careers, it could rip apart the fragile piece holding the galaxy together. Sari sat on an overturned crate, watching him carefully. I didn't call you because I needed saving, she said. I called you because you're the only one I can trust to see this through. He met her eyes. 15 years, Sari. 15 years, and you let me think you were dead. Why now? Her expression softened for just a moment. Because I had to be sure. If I contacted you too soon, they would have traced you, and if they caught you with me, they would have killed you too. The captain set the cylinder down on a crate beside her. You said both our leaders planned the war together. I need more than your word. Sari reached into her cloak again and pulled out a small hollow projector, dented and scratched from years of use. She placed the cylinder into a slot, and with a quiet hum, a hazy image appeared above it. The projection flickered at first, then sharpened into the image of two figures, one human, one alien, seated at a long table. Their faces were unmistakable. The human was Admiral Garrick, the man who had commanded the captain during the war. The alien was High Warlord Vesh, the sworn enemy of humanity. The voices were muffled at first, then grew clear enough to hear. They spoke not as enemies, but as business partners, discussing battle plans like trade routes, casually estimating the acceptable loss of life to justify increased military production. The captain felt his chest tighten as he listened. This was no misunderstanding. This was murder for profit. The recording ended, the hologram fading into darkness. The silence afterward was heavy. "Now you understand," Sari said. The captain rubbed his face with both hands. "If we show this to the wrong people, we're both dead before the day's out. If we show it to the public, we could start another war." Sari's voice was firm. "That's why I need you. You have connections. You have influence. Together, we can get this to someone who can use it without turning the galaxy into ashes again." He thought about the faces of the soldiers he had lost, the cities burned to the ground, the millions who believed they had died for something noble. Rage boiled beneath his calm exterior. "Where do we start?" Before Sari could answer, the ship's alarm cut through the chamber. The first officer's voice came through the intercom. "Captain, the drones are repositioning. I think they're preparing for a full assault on the entrance." The captain and Sari moved quickly back to the cockpit. On the external cameras, a swarm of red-eyed machines gathered near the ridge, their weapons systems charging. It was only a matter of time before they tried to force their way into the tunnels. "They'll never stop coming," Sari said. "They're not here to destroy the data. They're here to destroy me." The captain strapped into his seat. "Then we move before they do." With a roar, the engines came to life. The ship lifted off the rocky floor, the floodlights sweeping across the chamber walls as they turned toward a secondary tunnel, Sari pointed out. "This one leads to an old mining shaft that opens on the far side of the ridge," she said. "They won't expect us to come out there." The ship maneuvered through the narrow, twisting tunnels, the walls so close they scraped the shields. In the distance behind them, the sound of the drone's weapons firing echoed like thunder in the stone corridors. As they neared the exit, Sari tapped into the navigation console. "I know someone," she said, "a neutral contact in the black market trade network. He hates both governments and deals in information. If we give him this proof, he can make sure it reaches every independent channel in the galaxy." The captain frowned. "Black market means criminals. Criminals mean betrayal." "He's not loyal to me," Sari admitted, "but he's loyal to profit, and chaos like this will sell for more than anything else." They burst out of the shaft into the open sky, dust clouds swirling in their wake. The captain pushed the engines to full, climbing fast to break free of the moon's weak gravity. The drones were nowhere in sight. Yet. Once they were back in space, he locked the course for Sari's coordinates. "If your contact turns on us, I'll regret this." She gave a faint smile. "If he turns on us, Captain, you won't have time to regret it." The ship slipped into hyperspace, the stars stretching into long streams of light. For a moment, the cabin was quiet again. The captain glanced at her, the flickering glow of the console lights casting shadows on her face. "You've been running for 15 years, he said. "That ends now. One way or another, we finish this." Sari's gaze held his for a long moment. Then she looked away toward the stars. "Then I hope you're ready for the price." The jump out of hyperspace brought them into a region of space the captain had never visited. A vast field of jagged asteroids drifted lazily under the glow of a dying star, their surfaces glittering with metallic veins. In the middle of this chaos floated a small, worn-out station, its outer hull patched with mismatched plates and its docking beacons flickering weakly. "That's it," Sari said from the co-pilot's seat. "Black Spire Outpost." The captain studied the station with suspicion. It was the kind of place smugglers, pirates, and deserters used as safe ground, where deals were made in shadows and trust was just another currency to be traded. The docking clamps locked on with a dull clang, and the ship settled into a dimly lit hangar. The air inside smelled of old fuel, rust, and too many unwashed bodies. Figures in ragged clothes moved between stacks of crates, their eyes sharp and curious as they watched the newcomers. "Stay close," Sari warned. "This place has rules, but none of them protect strangers." They walked through narrow corridors lit by flickering neon signs in dozens of alien languages. Every few steps, someone sized them up, calculating if they were worth robbing, hiring, or killing. The captain's hand rested on the grip of his sidearm the entire time. They entered a dark, low-ceilinged room at the far end of the station. Behind a metal table sat a tall, insectoid alien with deep green chitin and 6 slender arms. His black eyes reflected the dull light like polished stones. "Varric," Sari said, her voice steady. The alien tilted his head slowly. "Sari, I thought the war finally ate you." His voice was a rasp, each word carrying an odd, clicking undertone. "Not yet," she replied. "I need a favor." Varric's gaze shifted to the captain. "And who is this? Another ghost from your past?" "My captain," Sari said simply. "He's the one I trust with this." She placed the metal cylinder on the table. Varric's eyes narrowed, his hands hovering just above it but not touching. "I heard whispers," Varric said. "Two leaders, one war, a lie big enough to drown the stars." "You have proof?" Sari nodded. "Enough to burn both governments to the ground." The alien's mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement. "Dangerous cargo. Dangerous enough that your bounty has tripled in the last year. There are people here who would sell your location before you take 3 steps." The captain leaned forward. "You can get this out to the independent channels?" Varric's black eyes fixed on him. "I can, but the cost is high, not in credits, in trust." Before they could answer, the door at the far end of the room burst open. 4 armed mercenaries stepped in, their weapons already drawn. The leader, a scarred human with a cybernetic jaw, grinned. "Sorry. Been looking for you. Your bounty will make me very rich." Varric hissed, his 6 hands moving toward the edge of the table. "Not in my place," he warned. The mercenaries ignored him, advancing. The captain's pistol cleared its holster in one smooth motion, and the first shot took down the closest attacker. The room erupted into chaos. Blaster fire scorching the walls, overturned tables clattering to the floor. Sari moved like lightning, her blade flashing in the dim light as she cut through one of the mercenaries' weapons. Varric joined in, his arms striking with insect speed, knocking another man across the room. The leader lunged for Sari, his cybernetic jaw clicking. "Dead or alive?" "Doesn't matter to me." His words ended in a grunt as the captain slammed him into the wall, the edge of his pistol pressed to the man's throat. The last mercenary fled through the open door, footsteps pounding down the corridor. Varric clicked his mandibles in irritation. "That one will spread word you're here. You have minutes, not hours." Sari wiped her blade clean. "Then we finish the deal now." Varric looked at the captain. "If I do this, every government assassin and bounty hunter will come for you both. Are you ready for that?" The captain didn't look away. "We're already there." Varric's arms moved quickly, connecting the cylinder to a device on the table. The projector flared to life, scanning and transmitting the contents into encrypted bursts. "It will be in every pirate channel, every independent news hub, every backwater planet's net within the hour," Varric said. "Once it's out, no one can erase it." The captain and Sari turned toward the door, but the sound of boots thudding down the corridor grew louder. Varric hissed again. "Go through the maintenance shaft. It leads back to your hangar. I'll deal with the ones coming here." Without another word, they slipped into the narrow passage, crawling through dim tunnels that stank of oil and stale air. Voices shouted behind them, the echo of pursuit never far away. They reached the hangar just as 2 bounty hunters appeared on the far side. The captain opened fire, forcing them back long enough for Sari to sprint up the ramp. The ship's engines roared to life, filling the hangar with heat and noise. As they lifted off, the station's defense cannons turned toward them. "Brace!" the captain shouted, throwing the ship into a sharp roll as red bolts streaked past. The shields flared but held, and then they were clear of the outpost, stars stretching into lines as they jumped into hyperspace. Sari stood behind the captain's chair, her breathing unsteady. "It's done. The truth is out." He glanced at her. "Now we see who comes for us first." The streaks of hyperspace lighted the cockpit with a cold, shifting glow. Sari stood at the viewport, her hands resting lightly on the metal frame, her amber eyes fixed on the endless stretch ahead. The captain sat in the pilot's seat, watching her reflection in the glass. Neither spoke for several minutes. The hum of the ship was the only sound between them. Finally, the first officer broke the silence from behind. "Captain, we have a problem. 2 ships on our tail." They jumped in right after us. The captain swiveled his chair toward the console, pulling up the rear sensors. 2 distinct signatures glowed red, matching speed exactly. Whoever they were, they had a lock on their course. "They're fast," Sari said, glancing over his shoulder. "Too fast for bounty hunters." The captain's eyes narrowed. "That's military-grade pursuit tech." The first officer's voice dropped lower. "Not ours, sir. Alien." A tension coiled through the air. The captain set the coordinates for a drop out of hyperspace, aiming for the far edge of a contested border zone. The stars snapped back into pinpoints as the ship returned to normal space, and almost instantly the two pursuing vessels appeared behind them. Sleek, silver warships bearing the crest of the alien empire they had fought 15 years ago. The comms crackled. A deep voice filled the cockpit, calm but commanding. "This is Commander Ralvek of the Keth Dominion. Lower your shields and prepare to be boarded." Sari's face tightened. "Ralvek," she murmured. "I know him." The captain glanced at her. "Old friend? Old enemy," she replied. Ignoring the order to surrender, the captain angled the ship toward a nearby asteroid field. "They want us alive. That's the only reason they haven't fired yet," he said. "Let's make them work for it." The ship darted into the field, weaving between massive chunks of rock. The two warships followed, their heavier frames forcing them to slow just enough to give the captain a slim advantage. But then the comms came alive again, this time with a different tone. "Captain," Ralvek's voice said, "we're not here to kill you. We're here to talk." The captain shot Sari a look. "Talk?" Sari's voice was flat. "Ralvek doesn't talk unless there's something he wants, and if he wants it this badly, it's dangerous." A calculated decision passed between them without words. The captain pulled the ship out of the asteroid field and slowed to a halt. The two warships moved in close, but their weapons stayed cold. Moments later, the docking clamps engaged, and a deep metallic thud echoed through the hull. The airlock opened, and Ralvek stepped inside, a tall, broad-shouldered alien in dark military armor, his silver skin catching the dim light. His eyes, sharp and cold, flicked between the captain and Sari. "It's been a long time," he said to her. "Not long enough," she replied. Ralvek's gaze shifted to the captain. "You have something that belongs to the Dominion. We want it." The captain crossed his arms. "The proof? It doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to the truth." Ralvek's mouth curved in a small, humorless smile. "You think truth will save you? This will ignite war again, but in the right hands, it can end the corruption without another battle." Sari stepped forward, her voice sharp. "And you're saying those right hands are yours?" "Yes," Ralvek said simply. "Give it to us and the Dominion will protect you from your own government. We will dismantle those who planned the war, quietly, efficiently." The captain studied him for a moment. The offer had weight. If it was true, it could keep both of them alive and still bring some justice. But there was something in Ralvek's tone, something that hinted he wasn't telling the whole story. "And in exchange?" the captain asked. Ralvek's expression hardened. "In exchange, you walk away. You disappear. No broadcasts, no public uprising, no chaos. We handle it our way." Sari's jaw tightened. "Your way means the truth dies in the shadows." Ralvek didn't flinch. "Better in shadows than drowning the galaxy in blood again." The captain glanced at Sari, reading the conflict in her eyes. They had risked everything to get the proof into the open. Handing it over now felt like betrayal, but keeping it meant every bounty hunter, assassin, and military strike team in the galaxy would keep hunting them. "Captain," Ralvek said, his voice low and steady, "you have no allies left. The longer you run, the sooner they will kill you both. This is your only way out." The captain took a slow breath. "If I refuse?" Ralvek's eyes glinted cold. "Then I take it by force, and I promise you won't like how I do it." For a long moment, no one moved. The tension was a live wire between them. Then the captain's hand slid to his sidearm, not to draw, but to make sure Ralvek saw it. "You'll get my answer," he said, "but not here, and not now." Ralvek studied him for a beat, then gave a slow nod. "You have until our next meeting. After that, there will be no talking." He turned, his guards falling in step behind him, and moments later the airlock sealed again. As the warships pulled away, the captain eased the ship back into motion. Sari stood beside him, her voice low. "He's not going to wait long, and if he gets it, the truth disappears forever." The captain's hands tightened on the controls. "Then we make sure he never gets it." The stars streaked by in long white lines as the ship tore through hyperspace. The captain sat in the pilot's seat, jaw clenched, his mind running through every possible move. Ralvek's offer still echoed in his head. It was tempting. Safety, protection, and a quiet resolution. But quiet meant hidden, and hidden meant the truth would rot in the dark. Sari stood behind him, her hands gripping the back of his chair. "We don't have much time. If Ralvek is serious, he'll send his ships after us before the next day is out." "He's serious," the captain said. "And he's not the only one." Once the proof spread, everyone with power started looking for us. The first officer entered the cockpit carrying a datapad. Captain, I've tracked comm chatter from independent channels. Your friend Varric did his job. The recording is everywhere. But so are the kill orders. Every bounty network in the galaxy has your faces on it now. The captain's lips pressed into a thin line. Then we finish what we started before someone else finishes us. Sari moved to the co-pilot's console and began typing rapidly. I'm sending a direct burst to the Galactic Media Council. They'll verify the proof publicly, in front of every faction leader. Once it's official, no one can bury it. Not even Ralvek. The captain gave her a quick glance. That's going to bring every enemy we've made straight to us. She didn't stop typing. Then we'd better make it count. An hour later, they dropped out of hyperspace near a remote relay station floating above a barren ice world. The Council's encrypted channel was routed through this hub, and it was their only chance to get the transmission out unblocked. The captain brought the ship in slow, the relay's huge antenna arrays glinting in the pale sunlight. But as they approached, the proximity alarm screamed. 3 ships emerged from behind the ice planet, 1 human warship, 1 alien cruiser, and 1 smaller craft the captain recognized immediately. Ralvek, he muttered. The comms crackled. First came a human voice, sharp and cold. Captain, surrender the proof. This is your only warning. Then Ralvek's voice layered over it, calm and unyielding. Stand down and hand it over. Or you die here. The captain looked at Sari. They've both come for us. Then we make sure neither of them wins, she replied. He pushed the engines to full, racing toward the relay station. The human and alien warships moved to intercept, firing warning shots that streaked past their hull. The smaller craft, Ralvek's personal ship, slipped in closer, trying to block their path. Hold them off, the captain barked to the first officer. Turrets on the ship roared to life, spitting fire at the incoming vessels. Explosions lit the black, fragments of metal spinning away into the void. Sari kept working, fingers flying over the console as she linked into the relay's network. Almost there, she said, voice tight. Keep them busy. Ralvek's ship swooped in from the side, firing a shot that shook their shields down to 30%. The captain rolled hard, skimming dangerously close to one of the relay's massive antenna towers. Sorry, we're running out of time. Done, she shouted. Transmission is live. Sending the proof now. The holographic projector in the relay's central core lit up, blasting the recording of the human admiral and alien warlord across every secured channel in the galaxy. The captain could almost feel the shockwaves it would cause. But Ralvek wasn't finished. His ship latched onto theirs with magnetic clamps, pulling them into a slow spin. The airlock warning flashed red. He's coming aboard, the first officer said. The captain unstrapped and moved toward the corridor, blaster in hand. The hatch blew open, and Ralvek stepped through with 2 armed guards. It's over, Ralvek said, his voice quiet but edged with steel. You've done your damage. Now you give me the cylinder, and maybe I let you live. The captain stood his ground. It's already everywhere. You can't stop it now. Ralvek's eyes narrowed. Then I'll settle for killing the messengers. Before he could raise his weapon, Sari stepped forward, her own blade flashing out in a blur. One of Ralvek's guards dropped instantly, clutching his chest. The other swung his rifle toward her, but the captain's blaster barked, dropping him where he stood. Ralvek lunged at the captain, the 2 of them slamming into the bulkhead. The fight was brutal and close, fists, elbows, and short, vicious blows. The captain caught a punch to the ribs, pain exploding in his side, but he drove his knee into Ralvek's midsection, forcing him back. Sari moved in fast, the edge of her blade pressing against Ralvek's throat. Walk away, she said, or you won't walk at all. For a moment, Ralvek's eyes locked on hers, full of cold calculation. Then he stepped back, his voice low. You've made enemies you can't even imagine. We'll manage, the captain replied. Ralvek retreated to his ship, the magnetic clamps releasing with a heavy thud. A moment later, his vessel peeled away and jumped into hyperspace, the other warships following suit. The captain dropped into his chair, chest heaving. It's done. The truth's out, and we're still breathing. Sari sat beside him, her expression unreadable. For now. She looked out at the stars, then back at him. After 15 years, Captain, I'm serving you again, but this time it's for more than just orders. He met her gaze for a long moment, then turned back to the controls. Together, they guided the ship into the endless dark, leaving the chaos behind, at least until it caught up to them again.